Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. And you are looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where the CNES teams are currently going through balloon inflation in preparation for tonight's launch. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the launch pad. And here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And we're glad to have you all joining us here live. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share the stream, invite people to join us as we continue to monitor operations down there on the space site. Looks like we might even have to zoom the view out just a little bit to make sure that balloon stays in frame. You are looking at a live view where the main balloon is now going through inflation operations in preparation for flight. We are sitting at L-1 hour, 14 minutes, 50 seconds and counting till the expected release time of CNES SAPHERALLER. I'm probably saying that wrong. This balloon mission, consists of a total of 12 different scientific experiments focusing on the compositions of clouds. The 250 kilogram payload will fly on a 100,000 M3 balloon, especially up to the altitude of 18 kilometers, and that's where it will run all of its research and science. Checking in on the chat, Adrian, are there balloon shirts at TLP? Not yet, but they are coming soon. So definitely take a moment and stay tuned for that. Question coming in, what's L minus mean? Launch minus. So in space operations, we have two countdowns, T minus and L minus. T minus is more of an operational countdown clock. That is the countdowns where it can hold. The L minus clock is real world time. So in 1 hour and 12 minutes and 41 seconds, you could come back and you should still be able to see the launch. Balloon launches can go a little earlier and a little later. With a rocket, they're right on to a second. But it gives you a rough idea. If you want to come back in an hour, you got time. But I would definitely say stick around and watch the final hour operations. We've been monitoring the conditions down in the area as teams were preparing. That first balloon, the little balloon that you see off on the side, that is the BAX balloon. That was inflated first, and now they are on to the main stratospheric balloon inflation. And you can see those two long arms, kind of squid tentacles coming off. Those are helping to control the balloon and keep it down as they go through this inflation process in preparation for today's flight. Now, down on the ground, you can see kind of that runway that comes away from the balloon. At the very far end of it, you see a tractor, and down there is where the actual payload is located. This is all being prepared for today's flight. That is where they will be launching from. So we're keeping a close eye on that as they prepare for flight. Parker, thank you so much for that super chat. We appreciate your support. Now, unlike most rocket launches, we don't get any live communications from the ground other than through the small updates that we do get through the feed. So we'll be keeping an eye on those, and I'll be bringing you commentary updates as we continue to count down to launch of the next stratospheric balloon from Sweden. Stay with us right here on the launch pad. And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You are looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where we have just had confirmation that the BAX inflation has been completed and the balloon is now fully inflated, and we have an updated countdown clock now running, L 16 minutes 15 seconds till that estimated time of release for the stratospheric balloon. We'll be keeping a close eye on that as we continue to monitor the clock. We'll work on getting that synced. But the teams down at the launch site are now ready for launch. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we continue to count down to launch. We're just going to sync our clock with theirs in just a second here, and we'll continue to answer your guys' comments and questions in the chat. You can send those in by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. There we go. Our clock is now synced with theirs as they continue to count down to flight here. Now, in the couple minutes before flight, we're going to take out a wide view shot of the launch region as they prepare for launch here to give you a better idea of the full operations and hopefully see the vehicle fly away from a little bit of a wider view, a little bit of a better view than we had of previous flights, the first NASA one of this year, where kind of got cut off on the layout, but we're glad to be able to have a much clearer view here this morning. As always, if it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name is Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where teams are preparing to launch a stratospheric balloon mission consisting of 12 different scientific experiments that are all focusing on the composition of clouds. The 250 kilogram payload will fly on a 100,000 cubic balloon up to 18 kilometers in altitude, where it will do its research. We're now coming down to 14 minutes and counting till launch. Stay with us as we bring you more updates from the Esrange Space Center as teams are ready for launch, and we're expecting the launch area to be cleared shortly. And good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. You are looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where teams of the CNES are preparing to launch the mission that is on the title of this stream, because I'm not going to try to say it because I'm going to say it wrong. But this mission carries 12 payloads up to an altitude of 18 kilometers. The teams have cleared the launch zone of all non-essential personnel. The 2 balloons are ready for liftoff here today. We're monitoring the wind conditions down on the site as they prepare for launch here this evening. If you haven't yet, take a moment, gauge that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us as we are now under 3 minutes and counting from the expected time of release. We'll be keeping a close eye on those balloon operations as they get ready for flight here this evening, or very early morning there on launch site. Now, as we get to the final 2 minutes of the count, we're actually going to hide our clock as they are going to release this when they are ready. So when we get under 2 minutes and counting, our countdown clock will be hidden, but they will be in that kind of terminal count. With balloons, it is not an exact count like you see with a rocket launch to a second. It is something that can hold, and they will release when they are 100% ready, and it does happen fairly quickly. So we're going to get that ready now to be hidden and take all eyes and focus down to the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where teams are preparing to launch to this evening's stratospheric balloon. On board, 12 scientific payloads set to study the clouds and how they operate. Take a little bit of a closer view here as they prepare for flight, and we'll cut to the wide shot when they go for release. This is at the Esrange Space Center in the very far north of Sweden at Kiruna. When we're on the wide shot, you can see a triangular building in the background. It's actually one of the rocket launch facilities in the region. This is the second stratospheric balloon of 7 or 8 that are expected to fly this summer from the Esrange Space Center during their stratospheric season. This is not a NASA mission, but it is a shared operation site of CNES and NASA. And they are now 1 minute, 15 seconds or so away from the expected release time of the stratospheric balloon. A little bit different than some of the ones we've seen in the past. You see 2 balloons on the tarmac ready for today's flight. As always, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat. Take us at the launch pad. We are now under 60 seconds awaiting. We are in standby for launch. The balloons are ready, and the crew have cleared it for flight, and we are just awaiting for the release of today's stratospheric balloon. Unfortunately, we don't have any live audio coming in from the site, or we would have patched that in, but we are looking at these live views as the 2 balloons are clear and ready for liftoff. Expected time, 30 seconds and counting. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button. We've got a bit better weather conditions than we did on the previous flight and a bit better camera angle, so we should be able to see a nice clear liftoff here today. We are now 10 seconds away from that estimated time of release. So stand by for the imminent launch of a stratospheric balloon carrying 12 scientific payloads up to study the clouds. You can actually see that windsock off in the distance, and when we go back to the wide shot, other ones up on the hill leaving the area, giving us an idea of the direction of the wind. Will be moving straight to the right side of your screen. We are holding at 1 second and holding as teams are ready to launch the balloon, and we will see release when they are clear to do so. But stand by for the imminent release of the stratospheric balloon. You can see the last vehicle starting to leave the area. Planned altitude is 18 kilometers they are heading up to study the clouds. Thanks for sending in that question, Eric. We are holding at T-minus 1 second as they go through final launch prep. Teams continuing to look good for release here this morning or late this evening, depending where you're located. Those final vehicles are clearing the area as they will release the... Generally, they release the big balloon first, because normally we only have one balloon. So we'll normally see the big balloon go up first, and then we will see the payload, which is down by the second balloon, hang underneath of the big balloon before it is released. So it's normally a two-stage release that we'll be able to see here for a flight. Teams still are saying they are standing by for launch, imminently awaiting the release. Gives you a little bit longer to hit that like button, share out the stream. This is the second of 7 or 8 stratospheric balloons we expect to see launch this summer before the operations head down to the southern part of the world, out to Antarctica, where we watch some balloon launches occur during the other part of the year, both for NASA and other partners. See the balloon swaying just a little bit there as teams go through the final prep and checkouts. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. Work on answering those. Now, unlike a rocket launch, we will not have views coming in from the vehicle during launch. So it's something that we'll see kind of fly off in the distance. But we'll hopefully have a great view of that here today. You can see it looks like someone actually walking towards where the payload is located. That's where they're heading down to while we continue to monitor the operations in preparation for today's flight. There's a few crew down around that secondary payload, which is normal for us to see when they prepare for the release of the payload. We do normally see people down around it, so everything's still continuing to look good for that here today. You can see that line laid out on the ground. They lay tarps down first, and then they have those lines, and you can see the lines kind of veering off to the side there, it looks like, to the secondary balloon, which is where we believe the payload is. Mars, why have there been so many scrubs on this mission? So there is actually 3 stratospheric balloons we have tried to live cover. This is a different one. So all the scrubs you are seeing have actually been different missions. We had NASA's Excalibur, we had NASA's Sunrise 3, and now this is a third one that is not a NASA mission. It is a CNES mission to study the clouds. So we have had delays. The main issue is normally the weather. They are having to have perfect weather conditions for these flights within their parameters. So that is normally the bigger concern when we're looking at these flights. But this is not the same mission. There's actually been 3. Great question. Thanks for sending that in, and thank you for being here for all of those launch attempts. You can see some people still walking around the area around the lines as we await an update for how today's launch attempt of the balloons will go. Again, if you're just joining us, you're looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in the very far north part of Sweden. This is a balloon and rocket launch facility. This is the second of 7 or 8 stratospheric balloons we expect to be launched here this summer. Westcott, dumb question. No such thing. If you're thinking it, someone else is probably thinking it too. Why are there two balloons? That is a great question, and I'll be honest, I do not have an answer for that. This payload is going up to 18 kilometers, so a little bit different than some of the higher altitude missions. So it's likely to do with that this is going to take it up there, and then maybe it'll maintain its altitude with the secondary balloon. But I'll be honest, I do not have an honest answer for that. If I can find one, I will get that for you here. And we are seeing more of those vehicles kind of go out of the area as we prepare for an imminent release of these balloons. So we're going to keep a close eye on this as they prepare both vehicles, balloons and scientific craft structures for flight. It does look like a pretty clear runway. Go back to just having the wider shot there, and then we'll pull out to the ultra wide shot when they actually have release, so we can hopefully see it fly off in the distance. But keep it a little more punched in while we await that imminent release of the balloons. BC summer solstice is 10 days away, so that is why you're seeing these very bright night. It is 2:10 a.m. UTC down in the area. I don't believe Sweden's actually on UTC. I believe they're one more time zone over, but it is the absolute middle of the night. But you could have fooled anyone that it looks like a very nice early evening. Some beautiful sun colors there as the sun is on the horizon, as they are far enough up that the sun doesn't really set during the summer period, but also in the winter it stays dark for a very, very long time. Teams continuing to say that the balloons are ready for flight and that we are holding at that T-minus 1 second mark. So we are imminently awaiting. Jonathan saying it's 4 a.m. local. Thanks for sending that in, Jonathan. Appreciate that. If you haven't yet, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We'll do some shout-outs there while we await the release here. Someone asking the current temperature. It is currently 6 degrees Celsius or 43 degrees Fahrenheit down on the area with 83% humidity, and we have light winds at 11 kilometers an hour. They are expecting some rain conditions a little later today as it warms up to 13 degrees, but everything's still looking good for today's flight. Now that the balloons are all inflated, very good odds that we're going to see a flight here, and the fact that we see both of those kind of tentacles now released, another good sign that we are progressing towards an imminent launch. Lots of people just tuning in. We've got Rug, another Edmontonian. Great to see you in the chat. Welcome. Eric's in San Diego. Mars is in Virginia. Mike's in Columbus. Kinematic is in Tampa, Florida. We got Robert in the Netherlands. Bird is in Tennessee. Damon's in San Antonio. Lee is New Haven. Jason's in Montreal, Quebec. We've got Ralifon in Daytona, Florida. Sorry if you said that wrong. BC's in Penticton, BC. Beautiful place. William's in South Wales in the UK. And Eric is in Wisconsin. And Laura is in Colorado. If you're just joining us, we are awaiting the imminent release of these stratospheric balloons from the Esrange Space Center in Sweden. We are holding at T-minus 1 second as teams do final checkouts. While we await to do some more shoutouts here, we got T-Hammer in Oakland, Florida. Brothers in Denver, Colorado. We've got Erwin in New York. Will is in Lexington, Kentucky. Camera will be back here in just a quick second. Refresh there. There we go. We got Greg in Sydney, Australia. Corey's in Sanford, Florida. And we got Capt in Vermont. Great to have you tuning in here with us this evening, this morning, depending where you're joining us from. If you haven't yet, take a moment and engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage of not only rockets but balloons, as all of it is part of expanding our human exploration of not only our own planet but the solar system. Balloons are something that we will look to use while we go to explore on Mars. They would have to be obviously different. The atmosphere is different, but it is something that we would look at probably using down on the Martian surface. I appreciate that, Daniel. Thank you so much. If you guys are interested in becoming part of the TLP crew, interviews are underway. You can send in an application. The link will be in the chat there, so definitely take a look at that if you're interested in becoming a launch host commentator or a moderator, or if you want to join our TLP journalist or researcher teams, so we work to bring you the latest space news articles and video updates, as well as build a complete space history database. We're looking at expanding both of those volunteer teams and all of our volunteer positions. So definitely consider sending in an application here today. We're continuing to imminently await the launch of this balloon. I, as eagerly as all of you, would like to see it off the ground. A little bit different than a rocket where, we hold, 3 minutes to count. No, we're holding it 1 second. At this point, they just have to basically pull the pins and let it fly. So the balloons are ready. Looks like they're doing some final work on the lines down by the secondary balloon. Looks to be 4 or 5 people sitting down there as they continue to prep. Looks like maybe a few of them are starting to walk away, which would be a good sign. We'll take that as a good sign. Linux, would there be enough of an atmosphere on Mars to use balloons there? It all depends what you're filling the balloon with. So there would be some atmosphere, but it all depends what you would be using, and you would probably require much larger balloons to not go as high. But in my rough understanding, it should work, but it would not work as efficiently as it does here on Earth, and it would possibly have to be a different mixture rather than helium and oxygen. And keep in mind, that's something we would have to take all of that over there. Unless we can find a way to develop it on site. That would be stuff we actually have to do, ferry over on Starship. Now, while we await the release of this balloon, we did want to always try to keep you up to date on the latest space news. You can always head on over to tlpnetwork.com/news to stay up to date on the latest space news, but we just dropped an article. The FAA has officially begun the new environmental assessment for the Starship launch operations for Launch Complex 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center. We break down everything from today's environmental review document release, and we will be bringing you full live coverage of the hearing set to occur in a few days' time. So definitely take a moment, check out that article, and be back here in a few days. We will pre-schedule that later tonight or early tomorrow for that planned Zoom hearing where they will be asking for public feedback on their thoughts of Starship launching from LC-39A. Some interesting details. A launch tower will be required, but also a catch tower will be getting developed along with a landing zone next to the catch tower. So that would help aid in Falcon 9 and Starship operations, as SpaceX is expected to lose landing zone 1 and 2 in the near future as it has been reallocated to Stoke Space. So lots to follow there, and that they will be launching up to 44 Starship Super Heavy vehicles of version 2 from Launch Complex 39A. So lots of exciting things happening there. You can see there some more of the vehicles getting moved out of the way as they clear the launch zone. Another good sign. We're continuing to get closer and closer to this launch. They moved up the timeline, cut about 20 minutes out of it, but I think we've got back to almost that original estimated T0 here today. Scott, is there oxygen on Mars? And if so, if there is, how much? We believe that there might be oxygen in the ice, if we can find the ice, but it is not something that's readily there enough for us to survive on. So NASA has developed a system. It's called MOXIE. That is an acronym, and it's the Mars Oxygen something. To be honest, I don't remember the acronym. It's been a couple years. But when Perseverance landed, it had a demonstration MOXIE in a box the size of a Kleenex box. And they were able to power it on and run it for an hour. And in that hour, it developed enough oxygen for an astronaut to survive for 10 minutes. So That was the first time we've ever proven we can generate oxygen from the atmosphere, but we do need to clean it and do that. So there's definitely the possibility of survival on Mars with that. The thing is, we need to have Moxies that are like a couple starship-sized Moxies that just sit there and are oxygen generators. Because it's not only enough to have enough to survive in that moment, you want to have, probably multi-day supplies of oxygen, if not more, to have a good chance of survival if something were to go wrong, or a full backup Moxie starship in the future. And it might not be a starship, but I think you would be able to develop something quite large in the starship. You just land it and turn it on, and you're good to go. If you're just joining us, you're looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where teams are preparing for the imminent release of the stratospheric balloons. I know we've been saying that for probably about 15 minutes or so, but we are holding at that T-minus 1 second mark as I go through final checkouts. You can keep sending in your comments and questions in the chat by taking us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. You can see those two kind of almost haunted looking arms coming off the main balloon. Those are two lines that were held down to the ground while they filled the balloon in preparation for flight. It also does give them a good idea right now with those up in the air with some helium in them, how the wind operations are down on the region. And we have an update from the launch site. Estimated launch time is now 3 minutes, 40 seconds from now. Now, this can slip. Keep in mind, it could launch earlier than this. But as you can see, a lot of the crew have walked away from those lines, clearing them in preparation. That is an estimated launch time, 3 minutes, 27 seconds and counting. So we'll do it again, though. If you haven't yet, let's see that go, no go in the chat for launch here this evening. And make sure you stay tuned to the TLP store for a release of some stratospheric balloon gear. That'll be coming out in the coming week or two. Make sure you stay tuned for that. L-minus 3 minutes till that estimated launch window. Again, when we get down to that final minute, we'll remove the clock so we can have that clear view in preparation for flight. Does look like they have cleared the lines, though, of all crew, which is a good sign, as when they release the balloon, those lines will move quite quickly. Large balloon is swaying a bit more in the wind than I think it did previously. Now 2.5 minutes to that estimated release window. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. If you'd like to support what we do, you can always send in super chats or become a member. Just 99 cents a month gets you access to those custom TLP launch emotes, as well as your name highlighted in green with a TLP helmet. Your helmet changes colors the longer that you are a member. We actually had to roll out some new colors in those helmets, thanks to so many of you being so amazing and being multi-year members. Saw a comment, is this how they're replacing the helium on Starliner? Unfortunately, these do not go high enough for that. L-minus 1 minute, 45 seconds and counting. 100 little details. Let's float this candle. There we go. Yeah, we don't want to light this candle. We definitely do not want that with helium. L-minus 90 seconds till the estimated launch window here this morning. Teams holding at T-minus 1 minute, as they have been, ready for flight. But everything continuing to look good for release here, coming up in just under 60 seconds from now. As I said, we are going to remove that countdown clock once we're under a minute, so we can have a nice clear live view. But the estimated launch window now coming down to just 60 seconds from now. If you're just joining us, You're looking at a live view of the Esrange Space Center in Sweden, where teams are preparing to launch 2 balloons. They're attached together for the mission carrying 12 scientific payloads to study the clouds. We are at now about 45 seconds till that estimated launch window. Waiting to see the first balloon released. It'll pull the lines taut, and then we'll see the second part of the payload released. Now coming down about 30 seconds to that estimated release time. Again, this can slip. It could be earlier, it could be later, all depending how local operations are going. And no, helium is not flammable in itself, but it is poppable. So we don't want to have a candle near the balloon, because the balloon then could melt and tear, and that releases the helium, and that would end the mission. I know, going a little too far into it, Joe. But if you're just joining us, we are now imminently awaiting release. We are at that estimated launch window, waiting for teams to release the balloon here today, carrying these 12 scientific payloads to study the clouds up at 18 kilometers. If you haven't yet, hit that like button. Maybe it's because we haven't hit 500 likes yet. They might be waiting, they might be watching. So if you haven't yet, take a moment, hit that button there. Really does help us out as we imminently await release of the balloons. You can see another vehicle driving away now. Could be another good sign. Well, that little balloon is definitely being moved around a little bit. They're definitely getting ready to do this. Looks like they've released some more line from the payload area of that smaller balloon. In preparation there, moved it a little further to the left. Looks like those lines are being pulled out there. More people walking further away, another good sign. Greg, helium is very expensive and limited supply. It is. The U.S. about a decade ago released a very large supply of helium that was underground, and ever since it has become quite an expensive commodity, and it's extremely required for hospitals. So unfortunately, supply and demand makes it very expensive. And we are standing by, and we have release of the main balloon. The main balloon has now been released and is being extended. You can see the lines now being pulled up by the main balloon, cutting to the wide shot there. You can now truly see the size of this balloon vehicle as it pulls the lines even tighter in preparation for release here. We're going to go as wide as we can. And we have release of the payload. The payload now flying underneath the main balloon. We have had release at 2:33 UTC from the Esrange Space Center in Sweden. 12 scientific payloads now flying up to study the clouds up at 18 kilometers. Again, huge congratulations to the CNES team. We are now 1 minute into flight, and everything continuing to operate nominally from what we are seeing there, as the balloons have now flown out of Zoom. If it was your first time here, though, thank you so much for watching. Take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another launch coverage of either a balloon or a rocket launch, as we bring you full coverage of all of those. Here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And if you haven't yet, join us over on the TLP Discord. It's where our community hangs out in between streams, and we would love to see you in there. If you're interested in becoming part of the TLP crew, consider sending in an application. The link is in the chat. And check out tlpnetwork.com to stay up to date on the latest launches and space news, because here at the Launchpad, we believe that space is better together, and we will see you next time